Hello again. I'm here again in front of you as the next presenter. So my talk today is going to be it's called Consuming CI in the Age of AI. Going for a bit of a rhyme there, but the main idea here is to talk about a specific type of AI technology called Retrieval-Augmented Generation and why that is a really good option that for a lot of businesses worth exploring to create a system that solves most of our problems when we look at what we expect from AI, but at the same time minimizes the risks of hallucination and bad information creeping through. And some of you might have been there yesterday for the panel discussion in which we were talking about closed systems versus open systems when we use AI. So this will go a little bit deeper into that. So just to set the scene, I mean, most of you, I guess, here are for CI professionals, and this is a bit from the pharma perspective, but it applies throughout for everyone. That CI is a demanding function, or it's a function from which there are lots of expectations. You're expected to deliver a lot of good insights and information and data in shortest amount of time, because CI has to be the one that breaks every new news first before everyone else. That's just the expectation. At the same time, if you look at pharma, there's also a lot of regulation around how that's done. There are a lot of costs involved, and it can become tough to really tease out the actual useful information from the tons of data that's available. So in this environment, we are trying to create something that is reliable. At the same time, it's quick, it's dynamic in the sense that it can respond to different new needs as they come from our stakeholders, and ensure that it's all accurate and reliable, verifiable data. So the problem statement is quite clear, and the promise that AI has shown in the last few years, if nothing else, it is this: that if it is something that a human can read, think, and do and write, then AI should be able to do it quicker, right? That's the theory. So, where are we now? Almost 3 years after the first ChatGPT came out, in terms of AI actually being able to help us in our day-to-day jobs. So in this today's session, I'll be covering or talking a little bit about some use cases for AI that have been proven to be useful, some tangible business opportunities that it has helped us bring forward, and specifically how AI can be paired with proprietary CI data, and how it can then lead to a system that's both trustable and quick and effective. And we can see some practical real world examples. So taking a step back again, this is the entire field of artificial intelligence is quite big and broad, and within that there is the field called machine learning, which is what deals with the technology that exists now where machines can learn patterns and get better at predicting what the next thing is. A part of that, a subset of that, is deep learning, which just means a specific type of architecture for machine learning that uses multi-layered neural networks, and that can therefore both learn and then be able to generate a vast amount of data. Natural language processing is a field in itself. It's not the same as AI or LLMs, but there is now quite a lot of overlap. We've been technologies has been trying to solve this issue since a long time, where the human spoken language can be understood by machines and vice versa. And that was a stuff of science fiction several years ago, or even maybe like a couple of decades ago. But we are quite advanced in that now. Now, at the intersection of all of this is generative AI. And this is a bit of a simplification because Gen AI can also refer to generating videos, pictures, music, whatever, but we're talking in terms of language processing here. And large language models are the most common and ubiquitous type of generative AI in this context. Now, as I was talking before, there is a specific system called Retrieval-Augmented Generation that can be used with LLMs to precisely call for the information that you want, right? So if you're just using an LLM, if you're just talking to ChatGPT, asking it questions, it's not always going out and fact finding information from elsewhere. It's just relying on its training data or the training process and the data that's basically now kind of absorbed into it. It's the model is the data is the model, right? So that's how most of these large language models work. But what that also means is that it's not really getting actual data. So RAG is a way to bridge the gap. Now we've seen LLMs start at a place which, for the time it was very hype worthy. It was very amazing that you could talk to this bot and it would respond to you as if it's human. And for the initial few months or half or 1 year, pretty much that's all what people did with it. Like they chatted with it, they had fun, explored. There was this whole hype about, oh, is it really sentient? Can it understand? Does it have feelings? All of that. And once all of that fun was kind of done and become kind of secondary to people trying to figure out how do we actually use this to make our lives easier and better and in some ways cheaper, right? Asking ChatGPT for therapists is just saving money on an actual therapist, right? So that's a kind of exploration that started happening. And then we moved on to more of an operational phase where more and more businesses have started using it in one way or the other. Yesterday, we heard from the gentleman at Reckitt about their own internal platform, which is not only a knowledge management platform, but also is supposed to help people get the information they want without having to manually go through every single little file or compose their search queries to or apply filters to exactly find what they're looking for. Right? So there is some kind of operationalization happening. Whether we get to a systemic level in the near future, it's to be seen. It's definitely happening at a functional level, like again, Reckitt's example, but at an entire business level, systemic adoption of AI is still to, you know, it's still to become kind of mainstream. And then, of course, we'll see when it gets transformational. We have heard lots of people make predictions 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Who knows? It's an exciting future. So coming back to where we are with LLMs now, that we've pretty much seen that the the increment in capability that's been happening with every version of ChatGPT or Claude that's coming up has been decreasing. It's starting to plateau. There was this big ruckus that was created when ChatGPT 5 came out, and everyone was like, "Oh, 5 must be better than 4, right?" And then they started using it, and it's like, "No, not really. It's not." And give us back our GPT-4. That was the thing that happened. But yet, OpenAI chose to launch that and relabel it and brand it as ChatGPT 5. Now, one can argue that if they really had a substantially better model, then or they didn't have a substantially better model, why would they launch it as a GPT-5, right? But maybe that tells us something that there is some kind of maybe a theoretical, maybe just a practical or logistical wall that has been hit with how good LLMs can be. But we all know now that they can be used very nicely if you know how to prompt it correctly and can use it safely to generate content, summarize information, generate ideas. Use it for brainstorming. Sometimes to analyze data. Again, depends on what kind of data there is, but all of this still comes with a lot of limitations. So you have to be careful of false and inaccurate information, it grabbing information from sources that are maybe outdated or incorrect by the time you're looking at the information. Sometimes not even knowing where it's coming from. Like, is it actually getting it from a published source, or is this the sum of its training data and training process that's causing it to answer the way it is answering? right? And all these LLMs are commercially available, and the companies that promote them to say that they are secure, your data will be securely held. We won't use it for training. If you're using like an enterprise model, a paid model, or a paid subscription, it says that it won't be used for training. But all that we have to believe them is their word for it, and that's historically not been uh, you know worth anything really. So do with it what you may. So knowing that all of these limitations still exist, how can different system, slightly a different way of using LLMs help us? So here we come to retrieval augmented generation. And this architecture is, at its core, it has a retrieval model, the job of which is to understand the question, so the query that the user puts in, and then use it to find the right type of information from a predetermined database, right? So this is a compilation of structured and or unstructured data. And the job of the RAG system is just to get the information from that data source in a way that it's aligned with the query that's been put in. Once it has that, it passes that information along with the query to an actual large language model. And the prompting it does is such that it tells the LLM not to alter the data that's being provided to it as context. Um, that, how accurately that works, we can get into that, but it's much more true to the original data than what just an LLM answering a question might be, which is just dependent on all of its training data. So let's zoom in a bit and see how exactly this works. So a user enters a query, and it goes to this RAG system. The RAG system will then search the relevant information in its curated knowledge source space. The important thing here is that the knowledge base that the RAG system has access to needs to be, again, reliable, up to date, curated, so it has the information that a user might ask for, and not everything, because the more and more data that you put in there, the less and less the accuracy of the system becomes. Then it fetches this information. It creates a new prompt, which is a combination of the original query or parts of the query that help the LLM understand how to respond, and the information that it needs to respond with. So it creates this enhanced context prompt, and this happens in the background. The user does not necessarily see this. And then this refined prompt is fed to the large language model. So what this allows is that only up-to-date knowledge, specific knowledge that has the source within our system. And here's what the closed system means. The access the RAG has is only to this particular set of data. That gets transformed into a response that's user-friendly, that not only provides the answer to the question, but also marks back to the source. So another job the RAG system does is that it keeps track of where a particular piece of information came from. So it will not only stay true to the content, but will also be able to point you back to the actual source. So it becomes easy for you to go and see what's the original source and confirm that this is what was said there, right? And these systems can then be fine-tuned and refined to get to a point where you're getting the responses in an accurate manner, in a way that you want to see or understand them, and it's also consistently able to tell you the source that it got that information from, and it's doing it in a way that it's not altering the context or taking something out of context and changing the meaning of it while it's providing it to you. So what are the advantages then of having a system like this? So first and foremost is that now you're no longer dependent on the original training data of that model, right? You're free of that restriction, because your data source it can be dynamic. You can update it, every week, every month, even every day, whenever you want, and the system will have access to it. So that's a big limitation of LLMs by themselves that's been overcome. And then obviously there is no need for constant retraining because you don't need to retrain the model because you're changing the information that it's dealing with. You're essentially changing the prompts that go into it and the information that goes into it. And the model's job then becomes just to transform that information into response by understanding your query to begin with. Then there's transparency and traceability. As I said, all rack systems can be made to point back to the source of the information that it's giving out, so that it's just easier to verify, right? If ChatGPT hallucinates and tells you something that you have no clue about, you'll have to spend quite a bit of time of independent research to figure out whether it was right or wrong. So, rule of thumb when dealing with LLMs or asking questions is always that don't ask it something that you have no clue about. Like ask it things that you have some idea about, so that you can at least, pretty much quickly and know when it's just giving bad responses. But with rack systems, you don't have to worry about that. You can just go back to the source and double check if it's correct. Um, it also allows hybrid sourcing, so you can not only ask it to look at the data that you have, but you can also supplement it with external data. So you can enable web searching on it. So it can be set up in different ways. It could have do web searches every time, or it could do web search only when it fails to find the response or answer to the question in the data that it already has. And of course, it gives you more security and increased control, because now you don't have to put all of your data, provided to the LLM. So you could even use a commercial LLM like ChatGPT to do the LLM bit, but the rack system could sit on your own servers. The data could remain on your own servers, and only when a query is put in there and a bit of data is pulled out to answer that query, that's the only time that data goes into the LLM. So it's like a trade-off. Obviously, you can't, or you can run the whole LLM on your system, but that needs a significant infrastructure investment, which is not an option for a lot of businesses. So with that, just to sum up, what we have been trying to do in the over the last few months is experiment with rack systems, see how we can use them with CI data. Being a competitive intelligence consulting company, we have obviously tons of information that we gather on different therapy areas, and we've been able to kind of experiment with that with the rack system to make sure that you can actually get something that's really true to the original source. It does not alter the meaning. It can reliably provide you the sources that it's drawing from, and at the heart of it is curated data, right? We hear a lot of times that AI is being used to search for data, you do web scraping, and essentially be like a team of 100 analysts all sitting in front of their computers and Googling information or looking up databases. And that approach has been tried. Sometimes it works, a lot of times it doesn't, because you, especially in like pharma, the accuracy is a very important point. Just getting bad information, unverified information can just mess up the whole response. And the problem with LLMs is that they always sound as confident as they are when they're right as when they're wrong, right? So at the heart of it is curated, up-to-date data that we ourselves invest time in keeping it that way, and then we've built a system that can be used to query it. So that's called IntelliCentral. It's our own platform that we have launched just last month and it's going to be therapy area specific. So we've launched with breast cancer to begin with, and we're going to be adding more indications in the coming months. It's really exciting and looks amazing. So if you want to take a closer look, please feel free to stop by our booth later on in the exhibition area. So yeah, with that, I'll end. I think almost exactly on time. Thank you so much for your attention, and happy to take any questions. Yes. Yes.
Hello, hello.
Yes.
Yeah, from the public domain. So how sort of resource and well, I guess everything's sort of automated to track in, right? That's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Yeah.
So obviously, you say you're starting with. I think I heard the presentation yesterday. You're starting with a particular, a certain few diseases, and then you'll
Yes.
sort of expand that
Yeah.
as things go
Yeah.
by, get feedback, tweak
Yeah.
things, and things like that. So. Are you currently using that in your internal workflows for your consulting, your bespoke services with your clients and stuff? Is that the sort of the plan eventually to sort of leverage your own internal platform rather than being dependent on external platforms and stuff?
Yeah. So, well, IntelliCentral is actually being built specifically to be external for clients to use with the specific goal that if you are a CI manager, let's say, or a person responsible for CI in a given therapy area, you will you will have access to different databases, right? You will have access to your trial databases, regulatory, pricing, and you have to go to each of them and find what you want depending on what the query that you received. Now, if you look from a perspective of a single CI manager, their job wouldn't be much easier if everything related to that therapy area would be in one place, all gathered and ready to be queried by a RAG system. And that's what this is supposed to be, first and foremost. So, yeah, internal use, if there's a suitable opportunity for it, obviously we use it and we save our time. But this has been made specifically to replace the need for a person to uh, yeah, do their own homework and find whatever they have want in breast cancer space. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Just to add on, would you not potentially cannibalize your bespoke offerings if you're having
No.
this
Well,
complementary?
that's a good question, but our the level of expertise and well, the bespoke is, I guess, the right word, right? Because this is a syndicated offering, so it's not going to be tailored for every specific client, and whatever they want extra is what we offer, and that's just a part of how the world is changing. AI is changing the world, right? You have to redefine your business model to fit with AI is going to replace certain things anyway. So let's focus on the things that we do better than AI. So go ahead.
Am I correct in the RAG system's only focusing on secondary data?
The data could be anything. You're not really restricted to a certain type of data because the RAG system isn't collecting information here. The information collection is being done by humans. The RAG system is just there to help you search, analyze, synthesize, summarize the information. So if you put primary data in there, it's there for the system to access.
Okay. Thank you.
There's one more question.
One question to the curated data, actually a bit follow up, but very hands on. So how does this work practically? So do you have a specific folder where you pull in the data, or are there requirements for the format so it can take like, I don't know, PDF, Excel, whatever, or do you really need to, let's see, clean the data and bring it into a certain database format? So it's a very practical question, honestly.
That is a very good practical question. So when building this, we actually realized that the RAG systems are for RAG systems, it's easier to work with unstructured data than with structured data, because with unstructured data, the context is right in there. Like the way the systems work, they chunk the information into break them into different chunks, and then they vectorize them, and then they understand the relationship. But if you give it like a spreadsheet with columns and rows and just numbers in there, it struggles. It doesn't understand that. So there are, I mean, I can't go into a lot of the secret sauce here, but there are ways to create agents to do that kind of processing with structured data. There are ways in which the AI can be made to write the script or code needed to analyze a spreadsheet in real time and then return the responses. So yeah, there are different ways, but you can use both structured and unstructured data, PDFs, PowerPoints, Excel files, and even images and audio and video. If you want to really build something like that, that's possible.